Great. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 21st Board of Selectmen of Wenham meeting. We have already opened this meeting and met in an executive session and are now coming back to the open session for the remainder of the meeting. As always, the first agenda item on our agenda is public input, and these are for items that are not on the agenda. And I believe we have someone with a familiar face, but we'll ask, please come on up. We'll ask you to introduce yourself, although I'm pretty sure we know who you are, Tom.
Some people do. I try not to these days.
He passed security coming in the door, so he's okay.
I'm Tom Tanis, 5 Eaton Road in Wenham, but I'm here tonight as an assessor for the town of Wenham and the chair, and that's why I'm here, the chair. I come down to tell you that a couple of years ago we asked for your help, and we did get it, in that you allowed us to get about $32,000 to do a measure and list for the town of Wenham. It's something that the assessors had been after for quite a few years. I think even when Jack was there as an assessor.
Tom, you deserve all the credit for that. I'm going to take none at all.
Well, I know you were trying as well, Jack, because I had heard about it then.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
You know? Well, we did, and we're just about completed on the measure and list. We did every single house, property, everything in the town of Wenham in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Walked by the same individual, which is very important. And he did it all alone and walked the whole town. We have come up with a final figure that we have, between the 2 years, have increased the value in the town of Wenham by $25,517,000 and some change. All right?
That's fantastic.
Last year, we were able to raise, because of that, $100,000 more in taxes. And this year, we are raising, this new year, we will be raising $479,468 in taxes. All right, coming in.
Very impressive, Tom.
All right, and I just wanted to let the people of the town know that this is really something great. It's between the 2 years, we're increasing our tax collections, increasing it by $579,000, all right? And that, I don't care what you say, is good money, right? The nice thing about the 479 is it's over and above what the people of the town of Wenham voted for tax expenditure in April of last year, because it's going on to this year's tax rate. Mm-hmm. So I suspect a few people will be happy when they get their tax bills in December, right, to be paid in February. All right, so I just wanted to bring that out to you. Part of the reasons for the growth is we have 2 new subdivisions going on. Dodgers Row, I believe it's 14 homes, and we have the Pines down here, the Wenham Pines. They're included, but not at full value because they're just being developed as of the moment. We also have homes in this town right now being built at the value of over $1 million to $1.5 million. All right, and that helps increase the whole kit and caboodle. So I just wanted to bring you up to date and know that we are going to enjoy our work, the assessors, in the next few months, because we know that everything we do will be helping everybody in growing in this town, financially speaking. Any questions?
Great job, Tom.
No, thank you. Thank you is what I will say.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks to the gentleman who did all that walking around Wenham for 2 years.
Yeah.
Mr. Brindle.
Mr. Brindle.
Yeah.
And he's done a good job.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, Tom.
Anytime you have good news like that, please don't hesitate.
Anytime, right.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, once
Another
every
side to
30
that,
years.
but okay.
Okay, next we'll move on to announcements. The first announcement, I believe, is mine, and it has to do with a public hearing and the tree warden. I will read the legal notice, which has been published already at least once. The tree warden of the town of Wenham, Massachusetts, will hold a public hearing in accordance with MGL Chapter 87, Section 3, on Thursday, August 23rd at 6:30 p.m. at Wenham Town Hall, 138 Main Street, Wenham, Mass. Said public hearing is being held for the purpose of hearing testimony and receiving public input relative to the proposed removal of the following public shade trees: 1 birch tree at Town Hall, and 1 crabapple and 1 pine at Pingree Park. Additional information can be obtained online on our website, wenhamma.gov. Questions may be directed to the DPW office, 978-468-5520, extension 6. Any person objecting to the removal of a tree must make their objection in writing at or before the public
We
hearing.
do it right now. Okay. Why are we cutting down the birch tree?
Well,
I know
so-
Jeff Shelgren wanted to cut down years ago, and that they didn't get his wish, so is Peter finally getting his wish?
Well, we have a whole agenda item on trees,
Right.
so we can either address this particular one here or
I'll wait.
there.
Yeah, I think probably worth having the comprehensive conversation
Yeah,
around
'cause
tree
it's-
removals generally.
there's
But
a-
just wanted to get that information out there. I mean, it's been in the papers, required by statute. It's on the tree as required by statute. It's the trees that are under consideration. But just wanted to include it as an announcement as well.
And they are listed in the information that we're going to be talking about later. So
Great.
we'll have a chance to comment on a lot of trees.
I only care about that tree, anyway.
Next on the announcements is Wenham Day, Jack?
Wenham Day, it's here again. This Saturday, August 25th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. There's a rain date, but I'm not going to announce that. By the way, it's actually August 26th, but if you want to come, and if you're coming at 10 o'clock, you better park your car a long way away from center of town, because by 10 a.m., it's very, very crowded here. It's a wonderful event, free admission to the Fair and Museum, so we have many, many food trucks, fancies, snowballs, whatever that is, Joe's on a Roll, Kim's Pure Pastry, Nana's Fried Dough, and the Whoopie Wagon. We also have beer and soda, Ipswich Ale. We have the Fire Department open house, and they put on a terrific display for the kids, by the way, in that they spray all this foam and the kids jump in and have a ball. Pony rides, town hall is open, if you want to wander in here and run around. Lawn games and a petting zoo, and we also have live entertainment, and that's a great day, and that I like the crafts fair myself, and that lots of people come and
Do your Christmas shopping a little early?
right, and that I also have, I've been told I have to make an augmented announcement here. As part of Wenham Day, Town Hall will be holding an open house featuring the Veterans Agent, Council on Aging, Board of Health, Open Space Committee, Historic District Commission, where are the people going to sit? Land Use Department and 375th Anniversary Committee, all these people? Wow. We hope residents join us to hear about Wenham, hear about your many departments and committees working on, and meet the town clerk or other appointed officials. The elected officials will all be out there at the Whoopie Wagon. Or to sign up this year's Citizens Leadership Committee. Whatever.
So those people will all be in Town Hall?
In town hall. And
Yeah, I
this
don't
room.
know. It's going to be a crowded room.
Hope so.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good thing. Lots of balloons.
All righty,
Hot commodity.
Okay?
I'm done.
Okay, I have...
Anybody have any questions about the Whoopie Wagon?
I have the next announcement, which we've heard before, and I think we'll probably hear, well, no, this is probably our last meeting before this event. So the Wenham 375th Committee presents Wenham's 375th anniversary celebration. Join us on September 8th for a townwide parade, followed by a community day at Pingree Park. The parade will start at the Bucher School at 10 a.m., followed by the Community Day at Pingree Park from 11:30 to 3. 375th anniversary merchandise is available at the town clerk's office, so there's also a Facebook page. There's been a huge amount of work that's gone into putting this together. It sounds really fun. The parade sounds like it's going to be really fun, and the celebration at Pingree Park as well. So we encourage everyone to stand and see the parade and stop by the community house at the Pingree Park. Again, September 8th. Parade starts at 10.
And we pray for sun, not
Yeah,
rain.
it's a rain or shine kind of day, right?
Yep. Take your raincoat if it does
Have
rain.
we decided we're going to walk or ride in this car?
I believe we have some kind of wheels.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what option has been chosen, but we will have an open vehicle. Should
Oh,
we
an
choose
open
to
vehicle,
ride.
that's why I asked for
I
it.
believe that's true.
It's not open, I mean, what's the sense
Yes.
of,
That's true.
It will be open.
It will be open. I think we actually have two options for open, but, okay. The next announcement has to do with, is John's actually, has to do with the Albee Dodge Memorial.
I am very pleased and very proud to make this announcement to a man who spent his entire 100 years of life serving this community, and also a lot to Hamilton as well, Albee Dodge. So there's going to be a dedication and a reception for the Albie W. Dodge Memorial, which we want you to join us on Sunday, September 9th at 2 p.m. for the ceremony of dedication of the Albert W. Dodge Memorial. The ceremony will be held at the memorial at the Iron Rail property, which is 91 Grapevine Road in Wenham. There'll be a reception hosted by the Boy Scouts Troop 28, which will be held in the Scout Barn immediately following the dedication. The Albert W. Memorial Project is a joint effort of the Iron Rail Commission and Boy Scouts Troop 28. And for those who knew him, one of the most incredible people to ever walk this earth. I mean, he was our tree warden for so many years, and this memorial is going to recognize the enormous number of services that he provided as a selectman, tree warden, scout leader, community leader, helped found the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School System and the siting and the building project of that. So please, keep it in mind on September 9th. It's a Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. Not a lot of time to give to a man who gave so much to all of us.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I think you have the next announcement too, John, on the Citizens, third
yes.
annual Citizens Leadership Academy.
We've spoken of this previously, but coming this fall, we're going to have the third annual Town of Wenham Leadership Academy fall program. It's 11 weeks, led by the different department heads. Academy is no cost for participants. It's free. There's no charge.
Snack.
It doesn't
Cool,
cost
redundant, John,
taxes.
but okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
All residents 18 and over are encouraged to attend. Registration will open on in August, which it has. Academy can see. They conclude with a mock town meeting and graduation ceremony, and Board of Selectmen meeting on Thursday. Okay. It starts on Thursday, September 13th. So sign up. It's a great program. Everybody that's participated has enjoyed it, and look forward to it.
Great. Okay, next we have reports. I believe a town administrator report. Reader?
Yeah, just very briefly, in case anybody who hasn't heard, there was a pretty significant structure fire at 128 Topsfield Road late Friday night into Saturday morning. It was at 128 Topsfield Road, the barn structure, and no one was injured. Cause of the fire was actually from a lightning strike, which had occurred earlier that night. So just wanted to recognize the good work that the fire department did, and the DPW actually were on scene with some heavy equipment helping knock it down, and Topsfield Fire provided mutual aid as well.
Great. Thank you to them.
That's it.
Okay, I have no report. We'll move on to new business. We have a couple of joint sessions. The first one is a joint session with a member of, representative from the Water Commission, and an appointment, I believe Ernest Ashley is here. You know what, maybe you want to, okay. I was going to invite you to sit
Thank
if you'd
you,
like,
Catherine.
but you have a microphone, so.
Okay.
And John, this is actually your agenda item.
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. Okay, so you're going to enlighten us on this potential new member if we all agree on.
Right, well, thank you, Selectmen. Yes, Diane Dixon did express an interest in being on the one position that opened up when Commissioner Quaitman moved to Gloucester and attended the last meeting, expressed, a background from the Ipswich River Watershed Association and interest in our water conservation and what some of the regional issues were. We basically explained the business of the commission, the data, month-to-month business, as well as what our overall kind of missions were. And then she had to leave, but expressed, reiterated her interest in being on the commission. So with that, I discussed it with our other commissioner at the time, Paul Mendonça, and the superintendent, and we recommend to the Board of Selectmen that she be appointed for the period of time between now and the next town election.
Is she here with us this evening?
No.
Not here?
Well, actually, she is.
Oh, she is.
So,
Sit behind me.
Welcome.
would you like to come up and introduce
Say hi
yourself?
to-
Say hi.
And I told her that if she served on the commission long enough, she'd get one of these nifty shirts.
Wow. You're lucky.
No incentive to stay.
I've been asking
What
for
an
a
incentive.
selectman's shirt for 5 years and haven't gotten one yet, so. So welcome.
Thank you. Yes.
What makes you interested in this position?
Well, I've lived in Wenham for 19 years, and we started off being interested in herring counting and water quality testing for the Ipswich River, and then I was invited onto the Ipswich River Water Association board, and from there asked some basic general questions of myself, like why don't we have enough water, or what conservation measures do we have, and as I was looking through the website, I saw the vacancy posted, and I thought, well, I have a background, I'm interested, and got a lot to learn, and it would be a good way of finding out how these things work, and if I can contribute, then that would be good too.
Great. Other questions or comments? If not,
Nope.
well,
No.
John, I
Thank
think you
Thank-
have the motion.
Yeah, thank you so much for stepping up to the plate.
No, thank you.
It's great. All right.
Anything? I think we're all set.
Okay, thank you.
Ernest, stay there, though, for just 1 second, because since this is a joint appointment, we're going to ultimately ask for a vote of all of us, and you'll be included.
Okay.
So we want to count your vote.
All right, I move the Board of Selectmen and Water Commission jointly appoint Diane Dixon to the Water Commission for a term expiring as of 2019.
Town election.
Oh, I see, for the, as of the town election, okay. Do you want me to say that again?
That's good enough, John. I'll second that motion.
Further discussion?
In favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds
you all.
unanimous. Thank you very much, and
much.
Diane, thank you very much, and welcome.
Ashley, thank you. Diane?
Unfortunately, I will not be there for Wenham Day, but I did prepare a little flyer that was a simple excerpt from the writing paragraph that I did. So it'll be information on the desk for that. And unfortunately, I won't be here for the Open Space and Recreation Committee table either, but
Which hat do you wear?
Wow.
showing my boat at the Classic and Wenham Antique Boat Show.
Oh, very cool. That might trump this. You might get a buy for that. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next we have another joint agenda item. It's an update and finalist interviews jointly with the Hamilton Board of Selectmen, and we have 2 members of the Hamilton Board of
Three.
Selectmen.
Scott Manners back there.
Oh, there he is. I'm sorry. Behind a lot of people, Scott. We have a shortage of microphones, so we can take one off of the podium.
Actually planning on having the
Oh, okay. Hi, how are you? Thank you guys for coming.
Here we go.
Not good to do this too often. Nice to have you.
See you.
Good to see you.
Thank you, folks, for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Third time's a charm.
Such a far trip over here. I hope you paid the toll. I hope you paid the toll at the Blue Point.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so just for background,
How about if I call to
you
order
should
the
call the
Hamilton
meeting,
Board
yep.
of Selectmen meeting for August 21st. We're here in Wenham Town Hall at 7:51.
6:51. Oh, phew, otherwise I'll get in trouble for being behind on the agenda. So thank you for coming. And we are here because we have entered into intermunicipal agreement for inspectional services. To say that for the public, I think we all know that, right? And it's significantly, I guess, the IMA designates Wenham as the lead community. The language in terms of filling the positions says that the inspector shall be hired by the lead party with a mutual agreement of both parties, Hamilton and Wenham. So we are here to interview some candidates and also to get Hamilton folks, you guys, feedback, input on what you think of these folks before the Board of Selectmen in Wenham makes its appointments. So let's see, what order do we say we were going to do these in? So the first one, if no one has any further comment to begin with, is candidate for the position of building inspector. His name is Brian Leith. I believe he's here. Brian, if you'd like to just have a seat. And if it's okay with everyone, I'm not intending to shut anyone up, but we have a fairly short time, so I'll lead on the questions, and if anyone has other questions for Mr. Leith or Brian, however you wish to be called, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Please jump in. Just process-wise, at the end, the Wenham Selectmen will have their comments, and we'll ask for comments from Hamilton as well. So, Brian?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for coming. Welcome. And I guess the first question is just a general one. Why would you like this position, and what have you done in the past that leads you to?
Well, I've been a local inspector for the last, I think, 13 years, and it's time to move into a commissioner's position. And this was an opportunity that was right around the corner.
What does customer service mean to you in a local government setting? In particular, in this job, the building inspector works with a variety of contractors, property owners, and developers. How do you provide a positive customer service experience in a regulatory environment?
Well, I think that helping the people of the town is probably the #1 thing that you can do. It's basically, I work for them. They don't, they're not working for me. I'm working for you, trying to make the experience as easy as possible. I know it can be pretty frustrating when you get a building permit or you want a zoning issue clarified, and it's a very trying thing for a homeowner, and my job is just to make that as easy as possible. And the rules are the rules. I didn't write the rules. I'm not the zoning board. I just enforce them for you.
So if you had a conflict, what do you think, how would you describe your style in terms of resolving a conflict between a homeowner, contractor, and you in your role?
Typically, you don't have as many issues between a homeowner and a contractor as you do between two homeowners.
Yes, we know that. Reluctantly, we know that.
And unfortunately, you try to do the best you can, because one of them's usually right and one of them's usually needs a little bit of help. It can be a very trying, as I say, that's the hardest part. Two homeowners not getting along, two neighbors. That's the hardest part of the job, not the contractors. The code's pretty cut and dry, zoning's pretty cut and dry, but when you have two neighbors that really don't like each other, they want to put you right in the middle. Myself, you.
So you've experienced that before and feel
multiple times.
Yeah.
Almost weekly.
So this is a pilot program for us, having joint inspectional services, and you'd be leading that program in essence. What would you do you think, to make this pilot program a success?
Well, I think you just have to treat each town as its own separate town, and basically follow the rules of each town. Just kind of, I'm sure both zonings are written different. Maybe we can merge them together someday, but I kind of doubt that. But, you know, it's a situation where, you know, you've got to just, one town runs things one way, another town runs things the other way, and I'm kind of the mediator. I'm not the gentleman. I make the decision, but it's the zoning board's final decision to make whether or not, if there's an issue between two people or between the zoning rules, that, you know, the board actually makes the decision, not myself.
So it seems as if there'd be a fair amount of communication that would be necessary. Can you speak to how you might organize that communication, or with your coworkers and also with your supervisors?
Well, I think the first thing I would do is sit down with Peter and your selectmen, and, I mean, hopefully that's the way the position's going to be set up, that they would be the appointing authority. I don't know how you've done it, but what I have...
The Board of Selectmen in Wenham is the appointing authority. Yeah.
Okay.
But I presume there would be, and there's a reporting relationship to Peter, but certainly also a reporting relationship into the town of Hamilton as well.
Yeah, and that was
Right.
clear in the job description, clear in the way the IMA is structured, is that, you know, operationally, they'll be reporting to both towns to make sure that, you know, there aren't any, in terms of different, you know, expectations, communication, that both towns will make sure that works for them.
Yeah, I think communication's the key. You know, I would immediately go over to the fire department, police department, introduce myself. We all got to work together. It's a group effort.
Anyone else have questions they'd like to ask, Mr.? Yeah, go ahead, John.
Mr. Lee, you practiced in Beverly quite
Yes.
quite a while. I need to enlighten you, it's a city, not a town. In your resume, you refer to it as a town. So you might want to check that. But that aside, in the reporting process, Wenham has had more recently not a clear structure and reporting process when it comes to emergency calls. Now, this hits more directly to the plumbing and electrical, but those do report to you. How do you see, are you aware that we've had some problems in the town of Wenham regarding process, protocols, functionality?
No, I was not aware of that.
Okay, well, we have, where the proper authorities have not shown up when called
Okay.
for an emergency shutdown on power supplies and so forth. More recently, we had a 40-foot gas explosion, flame going up in the middle of Cherry Street. And how do you handle emergency issues, and how would you expect to see that reporting process take place?
Well, I think once the call came in, I mean, I would obviously try to respond if I was in the neighborhood. You know, if I was on vacation, that would be kind of hard. But I think both towns have an alternate building officials. Yeah, we would.
We do currently, and we would under the new structure as well.
Right.
Each of the positions, they each have a backup position, so that if the lead wasn't available, the
Backup would go, yeah. I would just call them and have them go. I mean, if they couldn't go, I would go.
So how would you handle shutting down the electrical service if the electrical inspector wasn't there? Are you
Well, I think we'd
equipped?
need the phone number to the, you know, to the electric company, and they typically would pull the service. I wouldn't pull a service.
You would not?
Personally, no.
Okay, so
I
you
think
would-
that's illegal. For me to pull a meter.
I thought an electrician was capable of doing that.
I don't know. Dennis, you can pull a meter?
Electricians are allowed to,
Okay,
under emergency conditions.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
But that's not something you would be.
I would call somebody to do that.
So are you
I mean, I would
you
assume we would all
familiar with
work.
our procedures and protocols into the emergency call center up in Middleton, for example.
He's not, because he hasn't been hired yet, so that's not.
I don't know, maybe he's done some homework. Maybe you've explained to him that we've had these issues a little bit.
It didn't come up in the interview process, no.
Okay, all right. So you are unfamiliar with
I am.
I'm sure he'll,
this process and protocol. Okay.
I'm sure in the first 30 days, he'll become, if he were to be hired, he'd become very familiar with everybody's issues and concerns. Maybe
My
first 2
background is
days.
construction engineering, so I'm fairly familiar with all of the trades and so
Right.
forth. And emergency and safety are number one. You know, it could be an overloaded roof, like we had a few years back with the snowstorms.
Right.
What do you do about it? How do you inspect for it? When do you inspect for it?
Right. Well, I mean, we had a lot, in North Andover, we had a situation where we had a collapsed roof, and that was typically due to, it was it's a major college, 2 different heights of roofs, or 3 different heights of roofs. The snow blew into a 10-foot section, and that roof, they rolled a beam, which had to then shut down that section of the school. And that was typically because they decided to change their administration policies and hire outside help. The original help there knew enough to do that, whereas the new help didn't. I mean, I know that we went around and we checked every school when we had the heavy snow loads in North Andover. We've done that in Beverly. We worked as a team, fire department, police department. We found a building the other day in Beverly that basically we need to condemn. I mean, it's a hard procedure to take someone and take them out of the house to,
Well, life safety
to
is-
condemn
is-
it, but
is
we condemned it.
critical. It's fundamental.
Right.
And that's not every day, but when it happens, it happens. And when
Right.
it happens, you know, unless everybody is prepared, and we do have policies, procedures, and knowledgeable people what to do under those conditions, or experienced people that know what to do under those conditions, you know, somebody could get seriously hurt.
Correct.
Under normal conditions, you're very familiar with all of the building codes and requirements for safety on jobs, roof
Yes.
pitches and harnesses. And
Well, we as the building department don't enforce OSHA, but we have called OSHA multiple times.
yeah, you may be on a site and observe a contract.
See something wrong, sure.
Have a worker properly harnessed into the staging or into the roof
Right, correct.
securely. Right.
Okay.
Catherine, if I could just ask one question, clarification. You're full-time in Beverly and you're full-time in North Andover, is that
Yes.
correct? You've been full-time capacity inspector for
Yes.
over a decade? Okay, thank you.
Not at the same time.
No, not at the same time.
It got me a little. Folks, Hamilton folks, do you have questions for Mr. Lee?
Oh, I don't.
Okay. So nobody?
Awesome.
Okay, well said.
There's a slightly different form of government in Hamilton than in Wenham. We have a town manager form of government, and there's positions report to the town manager, not directly to the select board. So sometimes we get involved in interviewing, sometimes not, generally not. So my question is a little bit more for Peter being here, if you don't mind. I know I've heard from our intern town manager, Robin Crosby, and Patrick Grefford, who are involved in the screening process. Weren't involved in any of that. You're recommending Brian for hire, I presume?
Yeah, so we did make sure, we wanted to make sure that both boards had some input at some stage in the process, especially where this was a new program, and recognizing the differences in the forms of government. But both Robin and Patrick were involved in the initial interview process, and Brian was our recommended candidate coming out of those interviews.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, we've both had our input. We thank you very much. I think the way this is going to work is we have a number of inspectors, wires, plumbing. We're going to do all of the asking of questions and interviewing, get all the input from everyone, and then in the next agenda item, we'll actually be making the motions for the appointments. So,
Thank you.
within the next
Thank
hour.
you.
Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay. The next.
Report to Patrick. You report to Patrick.
Operationally, the building inspector.
Operationally, the building inspector here would report to Jackie, and Hamilton would report to Patrick.
Yes.
But then, but by the statute, reports to the chief.
Okay, so moving on to Inspector of Wires, we have the same two candidates for the Inspector of Wires and the Assistant Inspector of Wires at our board's discretion. Robert J. Brown, who we know as BJ, is here. And if you'd come up, we'll just have a few questions for BJ.
Good evening.
Or do you prefer, I guess I have to look, Robert
Oh, BJ's fine.
BJ's been around. So, BJ, what makes you, we know that you're the Assistant Inspector of Wires in Wenham, but what makes you interested, as I asked Brian, in this position, and why do you feel prepared to take on, I'll say, the role of Inspector of Wires?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I've been doing it for a while as the assistant, doing it before that as the unpaid assistant, and I've enjoyed it. I think I've learned a lot. I've done a lot. I love the town. That's why I moved back home. And it's something I enjoy doing and I want to continue to do.
So just so that I'm clear, and maybe this will be a question for other folks, the difference, the Inspector of Wires is responsible for all of the permitted inspections that happen with homeowners. The Assistant Inspector is primarily involved in the emergency
That's been
calls.
the format when it was each town separately doing it. Certainly that was the format here in Wenham in terms of what the role of the inspector versus the assistant inspector would be. And the assistant inspector would step in if the lead inspector was away on vacation and that kind of thing on the inspections during a week or so, just kind of spot filling in.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I should know this, but what makes assistant inspector different from an inspector of wires in this new?
So it's essentially the same model.
Okay.
The one thing that did come up that I know the Hamilton Board of Selectmen relatively recently approved was the statute, and I should know it off the top of my head, but I don't.
16632A.
There we go.
Pass that test.
Which basically allows, because both BJ and Dennis, the other candidate to this position, have their own local businesses, it allows them to still be appointed the inspector of wires and conduct their own work in either town, and the assistant inspector would then perform those inspections for those particular jobs.
Right.
And so, given their relationship, I would expect that the assistant would do a little more than they have done historically in terms of doing those inspections.
Covering both towns. Yeah,
exactly.
As small towns, Hamilton and Wenham have many people wearing multiple hats, some on a part-time basis. You would work closely with the permitting office, with public safety, and other inspectors. How would you approach developing working relationships with them if you haven't already?
I think I know most of the players,
Both towns.
but if I didn't, I would certainly reach out and try to schedule a time to sit down and talk, and keep communication. Just let them know who I am, ask them about themselves, and that's how I think. Sort of old school handshake and a hello.
I asked, these are similar questions, but we talk about customer service a lot, and it means different things in different roles. What does customer service mean to you in a local government setting, in particular, again, working with a variety of contractors, property owners, and developers? How do you provide positive customer service in a regulatory environment? You heard me ask Brian the same question.
Sure. Much like the building inspector said, it's, we work for townspeople, making them happy, making sure they're happy, making sure that the relationships between contractors and neighbors and contractors and homeowners is good, is important. And oftentimes, as he said, you do get stuck in the middle of that. But trying to maintain civility and open communication is how I would do it, or how I do it.
Do you think you have a weakness in the context of this role, and if so, what would it be? always think that's a hard question.
That's always a tough question.
Well, one area that you maybe, I think maybe a better way, an area that...
I like Jack's approach.
No, you don't get to do that here. Maybe to rephrase that, an area that you may feel that you need more experience in than others, that you'd be looking to grow into.
Sure. Well, it's, you know, the last guy that had a job did it for 40 years. I would say, you know, experience, you know, I've done it for a few years. I've done it on the government side of things, the Coast Guard. I've done it on the civilian side here for the last few years as the assistant. But I think I've gotten to the point when I'm comfortable. But, you know, relatively, my inspections career is, in comparison to the people's shoes I'm filling, much shorter.
And again, the same question, a pilot program. Do you have any specific ideas what you could do, how you could contribute to making that pilot program a success? This pilot program a success?
Yes, sure. Again, the communication. We got to talk to each other. We got to work together. Open lines of communication. Simple things, having each other's phone numbers, email addresses, talking, meeting regularly. As I mentioned to Peter during the interview process, I would love to see the town go back to having town hall nights like they had when I was younger, when all the inspectors were there, usually Wednesday nights in the basement of the town hall in Hamilton. Building inspector, electrical inspector, plumbing inspector. We're all there to meet, talk to people, go over plans. That's something that has gone the wayside that I would love to see come back. Just keeps an open door policy for everybody.
John, Jack, any questions for BJ?
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir.
We know each other a bit.
Yes, sir.
I'm very pleased to see you coming up to the plate on this. But my question to you is quite similar to Mr. Lath, only more specific because you deal with a product that is very lethal. And you've also been well experienced with our emergency calls for shutting services down, and you've yourself responded to that. My question is two-part. One, would I expect to be assured by you that though we are two different towns, that our counterpart, Hamilton, would expect the same type of responsiveness that you have shown in Wenham?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And my second part of the question is because the danger in power is so high and people's lives can be on the line if not handled properly, you are familiar that we have a policy and protocol. Are there any parts to that that you would modify or change to make it better?
Which from the initial call?
From an emergency call point of view, not as day to day. Okay, I'm ready. I've got the rough end done.
Yes, sir.
I'm ready for inspection. That's a day to day, but those are very important. The ones that are critically important and timely are those that become emergency calls by the fire department, the police department, or someone else who's, like in front of the building here, crashed into a pole, and now we have a downed wire.
Yes, sir. I would say that one thing that to make the process better would be to remove the initial call from, let's say, Chief Kavanaugh to the emergency center, because what you lose, there's time. There's time between them calling, them making the call, and then that going out to me. When you know that could be recorded later. When chief or whoever's on scene, the OIC, could call me just directly, and then maybe inform the rec center, the regional dispatcher, that they're they have called me. Usually they say that anyway. They'll say the electrical inspector's on scene or the electrical inspector's cleared the scene, so they find out that way anyway. So I would say removing that initial call.
Currently, it goes through the police department.
Fire department and
Fire department.
The rec calls the electrical inspector.
Okay.
And then down from there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Or direct line.
Yep.
Chief to me or OIC to me.
Okay.
That would shorten
the path a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Save time. Emergency. That makes sense.
It's important that get logged. I understand that process.
Yes.
But I think that that's something that could be done later.
Yeah. Okay.
sense of urgency.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You're very welcome.
Hamilton folks, questions for?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
How long have you had your master license?
I got my master license last year.
I was trying to figure it out from the resume. I love your veteran service, by the way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Other questions? If not, thank you. Same
Thank you very
process.
much.
We'll move on to
I appreciate your time.
Dennis Curran, and unfairly, he will have heard many of these questions, which I'm sure he's been sitting there preparing for. I'm going to just change them up if I can, just to give you a hard time.
It's always good to have a little bit of a laugh, right?
Thank you, Dennis, for coming and being here with us.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what in your past experience, what your past experience has been, and what in that experience makes you interested in this job in particular as a joint inspection services?
I've had my journeyman's license since 1989. I've had my master's license since 2005. I've worked for large companies, small companies. I'm currently self-employed. I have 4 employees. I currently, and for the past 16 months, the Hamilton wiring inspector, and that has been a learning curve for me, but it's seemed to fit perfectly, and I feel that we've kind of brought the level of service from the Hamilton department up a notch or two. We're being very, very resident orientated, very accessible, and it's really shown. We have more permits pulled, and our income is higher now. We have raised the fees, but people are pulling more permits because we made it easier and accessible for people.
We've talked in every case about the fact that there's always a little tension between providing service to a customer and a regulatory environment. Can you speak at all to maybe an example of where that's been an issue for you and how you've handled it?
Well, the number one word is respect. You give respect, you show respect, you get respect back. You can always have a discussion with somebody, and the way I deal with the contractors, generally, if it's a non-safety item, but it's a code violation, I'll tell the homeowner, please have your contractor call me. If the safety item, I have the contractor's numbers in my schedule. I call them right away. I says, you need to come back. We need to do this. I have the code book in the truck. And we won't have the conversation in front of the homeowner because a lot of stuff gets, you start quoting code, the translation gets, and we will have the conversation and mediate it and just say, this is where I'm coming from. Where are you coming from? Okay. Let's see where we need to come for a solution.
And that's been generally successful for you, you think?
Very successful. Very successful. There's no reason to yell and scream. We're all adults. I had one, I'm an assistant over in Beverly, and I had one instance where it was a judgment call, and I said to the electrical contractor, I don't have a problem with the work you did, I just have a problem, I think you're skirting around the code a little bit. What I did do is I reached out to the local, I reached out to Danvers and to another inspector. What's your opinion on A, B, and C? And that's the way. And then I went back to the contractor and says, that is allowed. So we resolved it.
So as a person, at least of people that we've been talking to and will continue to talk to, you will, if you were to get this position, be one of the more experienced people, and therefore maybe have more of a role in making this a successful endeavor for both towns. Can you speak at all to what you think you might be able to contribute to that, to making this pilot program a success?
Sure. I think, if you have a missing piece to the puzzle doesn't go together. So everybody's got to work together. Fire department, police department, and inspectional services. I feel that, everybody has a cell phone. Everybody can get a text. Everybody can get an email. And it's communication. There's been many a times with Kevin Dash, hey, what about this job? What about that job? And there's been a few times Kevin says, hey, let's meet, and we show up in the same car and resolve the issues. That's what we need to do. It's all about communications, and it's about teaching the residents, and you don't really need to teach the contractors, but there is a process. And teaching them, you got to abide by the process so that you can get what you need accomplished. And that's what the pilot program needs to do. Not everybody, you know, maybe once in a lifetime they use the town hall or the building department, you know. So that's this pilot program, for it to work, it's just got to be communication and respect amongst each other.
John, Jack, further questions for Dennis?
You've heard my prior questions to the prior candidates. I guess I'm not so sure how familiar you are with some of the issues that we've had here in Wenham specifically. Assuming Hamilton doesn't have those kind of problems.
No, it's wonderland down there.
But in addition to that, if a resident wants to do some of their own electrical work or building work, do you have a problem with that?
Here, this is a touchy subject in the code, okay?
Yeah.
The state says a resident can do their own wiring.
That's right.
But also the state tells the wiring inspector, you're only supposed to inspect licensed electricians' work. I highly suggest, I will try to help them through it, and try to guide the resident through it. If they answer a couple of questions I have and I'm not satisfied with the answers, I'll have to say to them, I don't believe you're qualified to do it. But there's a lot of people that have their engineering degrees.
Correct.
And they know it. And then you're like, okay, I will much rather have you, let's have it inspected, at least. Don't go behind my back, pull the permit, and we'll work through it.
There you go. There you go. You answered that question, I think, quite well. Thank you.
Pass.
Because no matter what you do, they're going to do it.
Yeah. All right. Let me add to the prior question just a bit more. There's been different interpretations of what qualifies an emergency and who's to respond. Do you understand the policy protocol for emergency conditions? Go ahead.
I do. Yep. There's been a number of times that Hamilton Fire Department, Hamilton Dispatch will call me out. Matter of fact, there was a couple of times I got to right around the corner of the incident, and they'd say, oh, we don't need you. Hey, listen, I'm here. Let's take the plugs, the switches out. Let's take a peek. I'm here. You got me. Let's be safe. You know, the end of the day is to make sure the residents are safe, the employees are safe,
Exactly.
and that's what we're here for.
No, this is not cake baking stuff. This is
No.
serious stuff.
And obviously, John, this is something that's come up in the context of you know, other people who have been in the role in the past year or so, and that was something we specifically addressed through the interview process
Good.
leading
Okay.
up to this point.
Good.
In terms of asking candidates the expectation for Crystal there in terms of responsiveness to work.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Curran.
Sure.
Questions for Mr. Curran?
No.
I'm all set, thank you.
Maybe I can provide a couple comments, because then
Please.
you're going to deliberate, I think,
Yes.
after and make your decision. It's been very positive feedback about Dennis and Hamilton. Good customer service, interdepartmental work has been excellent. Dennis helped initiate a review of our fees and adjust those. We were way out of date, so he was really excellent in doing that too. So that was a little bit extra, more than I think the typical job has. So he's been doing a really good job as the inspector for our town. And he also, you're all probably aware of this because we're kind of one community in many ways, but he donates a tremendous amount of his time. He's done things for donations of his time in electrical work, as well as other personal donations to the town. So we greatly appreciate what you do for the town. Thank you for doing that.
I think that's all that we have for Dennis.
Well, that wasn't bad. I'm sorry if I was long-winded.
There are two, so thank you, and we'll get there, to the appointments shortly. There are, just as a point of information, there are two other inspectors, a plumbing gas inspector, Kevin Dash, and assistant plumbing gas inspector, Dave Perrine, that had the committee, and maybe you can speak to this, Peter, that met with these people, felt comfortable enough that there was enough experience that these are just the people that you're recommending. And
yeah, so to speak to that, we did really look to start from scratch in terms of the shared services, recognizing that some individuals were in one town and in another town and in both towns. So we posted the positions. Kevin Dash has been the plumbing gas inspector in Wenham for a number of years. He's been over in Hamilton now for about 2 years.
Excuse me, is it possible to have Mr. Dash present himself?
Yes.
Yeah, if I could just finish.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, come on.
Okay.
So
We'll let you know.
yeah. So there were really just a couple individuals who applied for the position. We brought them in and interviewed the candidates. But given all of the positive feedback that we've had about Kevin, certainly for his service to the town of Wenham, and the feedback we got from Patrick Ruffett in Hamilton about the work that he's done there, the consensus of the group was there really wasn't much of a decision to make. He's already been fulfilling that role in both towns, and so our recommendation was to keep him doing the same thing. No need to have change for the sake of change.
Sure.
And Kevin is here to introduce himself.
Some of us haven't met you formally, so
I'm known as I think the Phantom. I think you called me once before.
the Phantom.
Yes. I've been here in Wenham for over 18 years now, I think, as a plumbing and gas inspector. Hamilton, the last 2 years or so, because the gentleman over there wanted to retire, so he just stopped, and they asked me to fill in for a while, and turned into a job. It turned into a job, so it turned into a job. Yes.
You get a job?
So
I remember that.
yeah, I think so. So, like I said, I've been here for 18 years. I really enjoy what I do. I've been doing it quite a while for you guys. And like these gentlemen said, it's all about community service first. We work for the people in the towns. So, if you have any other questions for me, I'd be more than glad to answer anything for anybody.
I guess we know him pretty well.
Yeah,
Well, more of you.
Common question to the others. You have a very lethal product that you service.
Yes.
And that is gas.
Yep.
And I've had quite a bit of experience with it in Beverly, with problems. It could have turned very serious.
It could very quickly.
And the gas company is not particularly responsive at times. And in the case of the Wenham 40-foot flame,
Yep.
you know,
They're
if you were
shut down,
called
burn off, and
on that issue, would you know how to handle that? Because I've never met you, but you are, I guess, the Phantom. In 18 years, we've missed each other some.
quite a few times. I know Mr. Jack for a long time from Beverly Hospital, correct? That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, it's the gas company shuts the gas off. We cannot touch the main street gas. So we have to wait for them. First of all, you know, the fire department did a great job by hosing houses down and everything else, but it wasn't the fire we were worried about. It was more of the radiant heat from the flames against the other houses in the area. So the fire department did a great job on what they did over there, the towns that did do that. And like I said, it's gas company. They are slow to come out at times. They really are. But doing this for quite a while, I have quite a few names and people in the gas company. Some of the top dogs I know very well. So if push comes to shove, I have their cell phone numbers. I'd be giving them a call right away.
Thank you. That's an excellent response.
And like they all said,
depth of connection
yes,
is critically important when it comes to
gas
transformers that blow up, gas lines that may not be connected to the gas company.
He may not come right out right away, but he's going to give me the people's names to get the right people to send the people out for us. You know, it's, like I said, I've been doing this quite a while, and I know the right people in this area, which is a nice thing. So, like they said, Hamilton, you were asking all the questions about what do you do for emergencies and stuff.
Yep.
Hamilton, 2 o'clock in the morning, last winter we had all that snow loads and all that crazy weather. Everyone's generators are running constantly, going into people's houses, COs going off. Quite a few nights, Hamilton Fire Department called and, all right, be there in a few minutes. You know, you got to evaluate, see what's going on. And a couple of, he's saying that one of the gentlemen over there didn't want to move out of his house, so turn the generator off for a while. It was going right into the, you know, close your garage, buddy. You know, you can't leave the garage generator in the garage running. You know, he wanted to,
Well, and that's a very good,
Yeah.
that's a very good point. There are a lot of people now
But-
putting in backup
generators are going all over the place, but
What are they powered by?
some are propane, some are gas.
Thank you. And
So it's,
So-
he had this one here, was like a portable one he had in his garage, he had the garage door shut.
the prevalence is more and
Homeowner
more
was, you know,
likely.
completely bad on that one.
Great point.
But we, you know, educated him and put it outside, and
Yep.
so,
Well, somebody has to get there pretty quickly to
Yes.
determine whether it's the gas company's
gas company
job
or
to
it's-
deal with, or you, the private contractor, because you were in a private home, and it's got nothing to do with the gas
you know,
company.
the fire department called, and he goes, sorry for waking you, so I'll be there in a few minutes, just let me get some shoes on, and so we can do.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else for?
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I don't believe David Perrine is here.
Dave Frayne is not here.
Is not here.
He is the very infrequent backup
Yeah.
to Kevin and
Yes, Dave Freed was assistant for me for quite a few years here. When I started in Hamilton, he took over, you know, I took over in Hamilton. He's a fireman in Essex, lieutenant of the fire department. He has his own plumbing company. He's on this North Shore only. He doesn't really move off North Shore for plumbing. So
he's the backup
If I couldn't get
inspector
here
in
quick
like
enough-
5 times.
Okay,
if I couldn't get it quick enough, Dave would be jumping right in for us. So
great, thank you.
quite a few years we've been doing this, so.
Okay, thank you. So before the Wenham Selectmen move on to the actual appointment, is there anyone that you've seen tonight, I guess, just to make it easy, that you would feel uncomfortable with in an inspector's role, or one of the ones they interviewed for?
I feel they were all great candidates. For the one contested position, I feel that Dennis just has a significant length of service and has had his master's as an electrician for a significant amount of time versus 1 year, which I think is the more experience you have in a role like this, it's going to make the difference.
Thank you for that. Scott?
I agree with what Allison said.
Anything else on any of the other inspectors? Okay, thank you guys for coming up.
So the rest is up to you guys. Thanks for including us. I think that is up. We're done. So how about a motion to adjourn for the Hamilton Board of Selectmen?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks.
Good night.
We don't see each other enough. We'll have to do this more often.
Yeah.
Maybe not this. Maybe it's like something less complicated. Yes.
Cup of tea.
Yes, the Board of Selectmen will take a 3-minute recess.
Jack asked for 5, you gave him 3. All right,
We're gonna have to go.
Madam Chair.
I think they're still on schedule even with a 3-minute recess.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Gives people a chance, thank you for coming, gives people a chance to get up and leave.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Wish to.
interrupt you, but it sounded like he wasn't coming up here, so.
Oh, yeah, no, I was going to invite him.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to explain the context.
Good. Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
I said 3 minutes, but I guess I should be timing.
He seems like
So
it.
7:40.
I'd
Just
like to get to
great.
normal.
Great.
Okay, we're back at the August 21st Wenham Selectmen's meeting after about a 5-minute recess. We are at the point in our agenda where we have interviewed several people for inspector positions, and I will turn the agenda over to Jack for the actual appointments.
The actual appointments, okay. Memo regarding the Shared Inspectional Service Program for Peter Lombardi. We already did that, right, Peter?
Yeah, we're on to C, where
Yeah.
all the motions are on C.
C. That's after B.
That's right.
There's a song about that, but I'll spare it.
That's good, Catherine. Unless you want to sing it,
I
I'll
was
stop,
going
you
to
know,
sing,
that,
but,
unless you know the tune.
I do, but it's okay.
And she has a good voice.
I move the Board of Selectmen jointly appoint Brian Leith, Leith, as building inspector for a term expiring, I should say beginning in here, right? Expiring June 30, 2019, subject to an agreement on terms and conditions of employment. But Peter, shouldn't we have an effective when? Tomorrow, tonight?
Yeah, it would be effective. The reason why it was left open-ended is because we have to agree on terms of conditions of employment, and obviously because he's currently employed by the city of Beverly, so he has to give notice. So we don't necessarily have a start date for his appointment at this point.
So a term commencing upon agreement, we've got to say something like that.
Subject.
Well, commencing on the completion of a successful employment agreement?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, and then expiring on June 30, 2019.
And
I'd say a date no later than September.
Well, that's all right, we got to have the, so you got that, Catherine? No. I didn't think so. Let me do it again. I move the Board of Selectmen.
Take the jointly out of it.
Come on, that's right.
Right.
I shouldn't be, I move the Board of Selectmen appoint Brian M. Leith as building inspector for a term commencing on the successful completion of an employment agreement with the town of Wenham and expiring in June 30, 2019, subject to an agreement on terms and conditions of employment. How's that?
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Further discussion?
Yes?
These will annually renew as described in the motion.
Correct.
Okay.
I thought he has an excellent resume, and I think I was impressed with his demeanor, and I think he would be a good fit for this position in this joint role. So I am in favor of this appointment.
I'm all set.
So am I. All in favor? Aye, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
On the successful completion of an employment agreement.
Yeah, right. We hope that's the easy part, anyway.
So before I move, now the inspector of wires, this is the only contested position. I just want to make a little, before I move the motion, to say, I think we have two outstanding candidates. They both have done work in my house, one outside my house with my emergency generator, one inside my house. And I think both of them are highly regarded, and people in town have never heard a complaint about either one of them. And that obviously Dennis has had some much more experience than BJ, particularly in the town of Hamilton, and that both are highly regarded. So and they both are town of Wenham residents. So it's very difficult to basically choose one of the two. However, I'm going to make a motion that we appoint BJ. I think that my motivation, and Catherine and John can move. During the past year, we've had issues with having inspector of wires available for emergency conditions many times. Some of it was communication difficulties, but with BJ was the assistant wire inspector. He came to help the town out in emergency situations many times when the inspector of wires was unavailable or didn't communicate that he would be unavailable. And so I think I, for one, am appreciative of him being there, since he earned far less in his inspector role than the inspector of wires. And so, I mean, we're fortunate to have two highly qualified electrical inspectors. But I move that the selectmen jointly appoint Robert J. Brown Jr. as inspector of wires for term expiring, I move the word, let me do it again. I move the Board of Selectmen appoint Robert J. Brown as inspector of wires. Again, we need to do commencing It's the same language I had before?
But that's effective today.
Okay, effective August 21st, make it tomorrow because it's late in the night. August 22nd for a term expiring September 11th, 2018. Why is it September 11th, 2000? No,
That was only if there wasn't going to be a decision tonight, so the term actually expired June 30th, 2019. It's the next sheet of paper.
let me. It's blank. I move to appoint Board of Selectmen, jointly Selectmen appoint Robert G. Brown Jr. as Inspector of Wires for a term commencing August 22nd, 2018, expiring June 30, 2019. How's that one?
Oh, okay. I would second the motion.
Further discussion?
John?
I fully agree with what Jack has said. I have absolutely no problem with either of these candidates. I've known them both thoroughly through the town experience. Dennis is a superb person for community service, and he knows his stuff. But in agreement with what Jack was saying about coming up to the plate when duty called and there was no call necessary, you just did it. So I would be in favor of making BJ the electrical inspector.
So I certainly cannot disagree with anything that has been said. I think these are both excellent candidates and have a proven track record, and certainly can't question the work ethic and the culture that BJ brings to the position. I will go on record as saying, however, that I think, especially in a joint inspectional services, a new model with maybe more responsibility, that a person with more experience might be better suited to the not the main inspector. For those reasons, I think I personally would favor appointing Dennis as the inspector of wires with BJ as the assistant. But I hear you guys, but I did want to go on record. I don't have an if that point of view, also taking into account Hamilton's point of view, does not prevail, I have certainly no issue with either of these people in terms of their ability to do the job. I just feel as if the amount of experience would be very helpful in a lead role in this particular model. So that's all.
So we have a motion to approve and seconded.
Right, and we've all commented.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I will make it unanimous because I think that whoever does this position needs to know that they have the support of the entire board. I think I've made my opinion known.
Thank you.
Moving on, I move the Board of Selectmen appoint Dennis J. Curran as the Assistant Inspector of Wires for a term commencing tomorrow, August 22nd, for a term expiring June 30, 2019. Do I hear a second?
Second the motion.
Further discussion?
I already made my comments.
Further discussion? Anyway, it's another motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you
Building and
both.
Gas Inspector, let's see, we have 5 candidates. Oh, we only have 1 candidate, don't we?
It gets easier.
Yeah, it gets easier. I move the Board of Selectmen appoint Kevin Dash as Plumbing and Gas Inspector for a term commencing tomorrow, August 22nd, 2018, expiring June 3rd, 2019. Do I hear a second?
I will second the motion.
No
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Congratulations,
Unanimous?
Kevin. Assistant Gas. I move the Board of Selectmen appoint David Perrine as Assistant Plumbing and Gas Inspector for a term commencing tomorrow, August 22nd, 2018, expiring June 3rd, 2019. Do I hear a second?
Second the motion.
Further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous on that as well.
Yep.
So I think that we have successfully appointed a new group of inspectors for our new model.
Good luck.
A new
Is that
team.
a correct statement, Peter? We had all the bases covered on that?
It is indeed, and I know obviously Hamilton's going through some transition in their leadership. The new town manager starts on the 4th. He actually was hoping to join us here tonight, but had a conflict, and I've been in communication with him, plan to circle back tomorrow morning and follow up with him in terms of implementation and making sure that it's rolled out well. We've been talking about this a long time, so yeah, now it's to the point where the rubber meets the road, and we want to make sure that implementation-wise it goes well for everybody involved.
And I don't know that we've quantified this, but it seems as if we should have some regular report outs on, how it is going.
Yeah, so it's a 2-year program.
Right.
Initially, that's the term, and so I would expect that certainly going through the budget process, the IMA requires a check-in in terms of understanding how many inspections have been completed, so that we can refine the model in terms of compensation for each of the positions going into the next fiscal year, based on current prior year actuals. And so we'll certainly be having that conversation as we go through the budget process as part of our shared service check-in with Hamilton.
Why don't you grab a microphone, Peter, because, John's got that microphone. He's not going to give it up, apparently.
I guess we're going to get a few more
not that there's an extra microphone available.
I have a suggestion for
I have
new model.
Just a point of reference that we're going to go through this process again next May, effective June 19th. This is expiring next June, so...
The appointments are annual appointments.
I know,
for
but
each
we
of
would
the
be considering appointments, not retrospectively. We wouldn't be doing this next August.
Correct.
That's my point.
It'll be back on the fiscal
8 or 9 months of 9 months from now-ish, we'll be doing this again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just for...
Right, so I guess to that point, Jack, I would be interested in some feedback before we have to make those appointments
Well,
again.
I would hope we would get that.
Well, that's why, we're talking about timing.
Yeah, and there'd be feedback going through the budget process,
Right.
January, February, and again in May.
Okay,
We'll have a couple check-ins.
Or sooner, if indeed it's warranted.
Of course.
For some, I presume some deficiency as opposed to some congratulations on,
We do congratulations, too, if
We
they're
can
in
do that,
order.
too. But, it's hard to, I don't know how to congratulate the plumbing inspector on doing his inspection.
We're also working on rolling out the new e-permitting platform here in Wenham, and so you'll be hearing about that sometime in October as well. So we'll be talking more to come on inspection services
And
in the next few
you'll
months.
let us know when you have the final documentation for Brian Leith.
Correct.
Great. Else on inspections that we want to talk about before we move on?
That was a hard one.
Yeah, it was.
Well, it's
Glad it's behind
also
us.
critically important.
Yep.
Each one of these positions are
Indeed.
life safety issues at some point in time. If these gentlemen don't know their work, don't know their requirements, or don't respond, we have a responsibility as the board overseeing all of this to whatever happens. And that's why I've become so animated over it over the last few months, because we revealed that there were some huge deficits and they had to be dealt with and addressed. So
I think the real value of this shared model that we talked about on the Wenham side going through the process is that we've always had a part-time building inspector, and Hamilton has as well. Sometimes it's been the same person, sometimes it hasn't been. But under this new model with really incremental cost increases on Wenham's side, we're going to have a full-time building inspector who will be here 40 hours a week, available to residents, available to contractors, not a couple times a week for inspections. There's going to be some flexibility in terms of where that individual's time is going to be spent just based on the workload on any given day. So that's going to really, I think, be a great benefit to the town.
I'm happy to finally have it in place, or nearly.
thank all of you folks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Stepping up to the plate. It's comforting to know that we've got good competency.
Thank you.
Taking care of us. Thank you. And it's not just in the police department or the fire.
All right. So the next thing that we have on our agenda.
Just hiding in the back.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We have an opening in our finance office. It's a finance director, treasurer, collector position. There has been a process, a pre-screening process, and we have one finalist to interview this evening. Her name is Patricia Moore, And if she, oh, you are Heidi. Wow. Boy, that back, whoa, I think I need a separate camera for back there. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
We will, I'll just kick it off and then we'll go around the table and ask our questions. How does that sound? And just by way of introduction, if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do now and why you might be interested in this job here in Wenham.
Sure. Right now, currently, I'm the finance director for the town of Kittery, Maine. I am from Massachusetts, and my municipal roots are from Massachusetts. I first got interested in municipal work. When I got out of graduate school, I went into private industry, and after many years, I stayed home for a little bit, so I volunteered at the Town of Lynnfield Finance Committee, and it's a form of government very similar, almost identical here in Wenham.
Very similar.
And it's one that I really enjoy. So I spent about a decade on the Finance Committee there, and 5 years as its chair. So I really, at that point, knew that municipal finance and municipal work was where I wanted to go. So when I became available to work full-time again, I took a job in Lexington, Mass, as a budget officer, budget director, and basically was responsible for developing and assisting and communicating a budget in excess of $230 million. While I was there, we moved. I was living in Lynnfield at the time, and we moved up to Newburyport, and I decided to leave Lexington because the commute was, quite frankly, just getting to be a little bit cumbersome. So I actually took a job which was a little bit of a switch for me, one that I know your town administrator is familiar with, and I know it is a small world, and I worked as a chief administrative officer for the city of Newburyport. We learned a lot, got into the real operations of a municipality, but really became I was really at a bit of a crossroads once I took that position because I missed the finance stuff. I didn't much enjoy the political side of things, and in a city form of government, it's a very political setup. I don't have to tell you that. And so when the opportunity, I knew at that point I was either going to go town manager, town administrator route if I stayed there, or if I went back to my financial roots, I would end up where I wanted to be, and that was more the financial job. So through some people that I knew in Newburyport, my name came up in Kittery to the new town manager there, and she approached me about coming to work in Kittery. So I went to work in Kittery. I like Kittery. I like my job. I work in a great environment. I have a very supportive boss, a very supportive council there. I miss the Massachusetts environment. I have a lot of colleagues here that I like to work with. I like the structure of Massachusetts. Maine's a little bit less structured than Massachusetts. And quite frankly, when I saw this listed, it's probably a little bit early for me to move, but I just couldn't pass up a smaller town, in the form of government that I really enjoy.
Thank you for that introduction. I'll pass it on to.
Well, now if you come here, you'll have to go to Kittery to shop.
That's right.
Go to Kittery to work.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, go for that traffic. Specific questions?
How big is Kittery compared to Wenham?
About twice the size. We have about 9,000 residents, about 4,000 households. It's an interesting town because during the day it doubles in size because we have the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard there, and so it's an interesting arrangement and relationship we have with them. It's a very good one. So it's about the same size. The budget's about twice as big here. We have our own school system, unlike a lot in Maine. They have a regional school district, really like you do. It's mostly regional. We actually have our own school system, about 40%, which is kind of an in and out population because a lot of the students come from the Navy Yard. So, but it's a great environment. It's a nice town. It's a very different form of government. It's a kind of a cross between a city and a town. It's a town council form of government. So they vote the budget, but the school budget goes to ballot, and so do certainly any bond authorizations and things like that. So,
is their fiscal year the same as ours?
Same as ours. Yep.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
John?
You have no problem being at a town meeting and discussing the budget with the town folks?
No, not at all. I mean, when I was on the finance committee in Lynnfield, even though the town administrator would present the budget and the selectmen would as well, we were certainly always asked our opinion. I served on that board during the Market Street development, which was a very difficult thing to get through the town, and it was very divisive. And, I was chair of the committee at that time and really just had to work through. We had many, many meetings and just trying to, comfort people that this was not going to be a bad thing for the town and that we really just didn't have a choice anyway, and that we had an opportunity to make it work on our behalf. So, no, I'm comfortable with that.
So, I guess maybe the most important question that we have for you is the fact that your background is clearly in finance and is clearly budgeting, finance operations. But this position is a finance director / treasurer collector position, which is statutory. That function is statutory in the state of Massachusetts. Can you tell us a little bit about what experience you might have in that, and to the extent that well, let's start with that. Sure.
So in my position where I am now, I am the finance director, but I am also the town accountant, so I have those two pieces. In Maine, by statute, the town manager is the treasurer and tax collector, but for all intents and purposes, the finance department, we do all those functions. So we do all of the collecting, we do all of the processing of people who come in. Our town clerks do a lot of the processing out front, but we do, same thing. We get lock boxes, we upload the files, we do the billing for, we have a sewer operation. We don't have the water, but we have the sewer operation. We do all the billing for that. I take care of all the treasury functions, balancing bank statements, investments, watching our cash, making sure we have enough cash on hand, and times when I know we're not having a lot of cash coming in. When we have big projects where we have a lot of cash outflow waiting for reimbursements, we have to watch that cash and make sure that there's always enough in there. We manage about between 10 and 12 different bank accounts that flow different ways, and some earn interest and some don't, and some have different functions. So we're involved in all that. My team is involved in all that.
And do you feel like you have pretty much or a fair amount of direct involvement in that would translate to actually being the treasurer collector?
I think so. I certainly more on the treasury side. As far as the collections go, I think it's something that would be, we do it every day. I see it every day. I do it periodically, but certainly not on a regular basis, no. So I see what you're saying there. But, I'd be certainly very comfortable to do that and to learn it. And quite frankly, it's a little interesting for me because it would complete my piece of the finance director side, where I've already had the really nitty-gritty accounting, and certainly budgeting is something I've done for years. And I would be interested in doing that last piece. And quite frankly, in a smaller town, where it's more of a kind of an all hands on deck philosophy, where you'd have more involvement with seeing people and doing stuff almost on a daily basis, and that would be great. We're a pretty busy office. We have people flowing all day long. We're open 11 hours a day or 10 hours a day, so we're a pretty busy operation in Kittery.
So you touched on something else that would be really important to us. I think this, as you know, is a small town, and as you may know, a very small finance department.
Right.
So although I just described this person's job as finance director, treasurer, collector, everyone really needs to be comfortable doing everything.
Yeah.
So there could be a situation where you would be would you be comfortable, I guess, in a situation where you're not sitting in your office, where you might be manning the window or filling in for the part-time person?
Yeah, very much so. That's a lot of interest to me, to be able to get a little bit more involved with everything on a day-to-day basis. One of the things I tried to do when I first got to Kittery, and I took over this position when they had quite a bit of turnover there, so there was a lot of things to catch up on. But I tried to sit down and learn everyone's job, even if I didn't learn it on a procedural basis right away. At least I wanted to understand what everybody did, and that's the same way I'd approach it here. It's important that we all cross-train is huge. I've worked in the last year and a half that I've been there to cross-train people, so people can actually take a vacation, and we don't have to worry about payroll getting done. So it's worked well. I've also been very lucky that I have a very good team too.
I think we have a very good team as well.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So you talked a little bit about factors that you considered and why you'd be interested in this position. How does this position, if you were to get it, fit into your long-term career goals? Do you see yourself 10 years from now?
I mean, 10 years from now, quite frankly, I'm in a position now where I want to be. I like this position. I like municipal government. I don't have any interest in going back to private industry. I like the feel of working in a town. I am where I'm going to be. And I would like to get somewhere, stay somewhere, and basically help, the town as we move through. And with some operational experience, hopefully I could be able to see some of that from the budgeting standpoint. And, that's pretty much where I am.
Okay. So just one last question for me. So the finance director in this town is a key management position. And sometimes someone who has to work collaboratively and balance the needs of several different and sometimes disparate groups. That town administrator is really tough, just saying. Department heads, finance office personnel, and elected. We're very easy. And appointed officials. So how would you approach managing different perspectives and different priorities? How does that work for you?
Well, we do that. It's a very similar situation in Kittery and really anywhere where you have a fairly small government. I mean, we've got the senior staff, all the department heads. There's many of us. I work daily with public works directors. We always have a lot of projects going on, so I'm trying to manage those. We're managing grants. We're trying to make sure that we have all that. Sometimes there are competing thoughts and competing ideas, but I think as long as we all are in the same, we all have the same objective. We all sometimes may disagree as to how we get there. But I'm very comfortable doing that. There are times where you have selectmen or town councils who have competing agendas, and you have to.
Really? No way! Come on.
Not here.
And you know.
That's right. Once you get across the board,
it's all changed. No, and you just have to. For my position, it's a great position because if someone's looking for numbers or some analysis, you give it to them and you interpret it and you help people interpret it as they will. And like I've always mentioned, I like what I do because the numbers don't lie, and I'm comfortable with that. So yeah, we work with many different people. We work with the residents a lot. So
we have a lot of our finance committee, of which you would be the major resource to, has a lot of night meetings in preparation for a town meeting.
Sure.
And you understand that would be sort of part of the job.
Very familiar with that, both when I was on the finance committee in Linfield and Lexington has a very extended.
She's lived that world.
Yeah. And Lexington had a very extended budget process. It pretty much started after the holidays and ended sometime in May. So yeah, I'm very used to that.
Anything else?
I have a comment. I had a couple of concerns coming in, but I think you interviewed extremely well, and I like your enthusiasm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack.
I think your experience and your personality come across very powerful. So.
Thank you. I hope that's good. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for us?
What are you looking for in a finance director?
Well, I should ask Peter that question. But we're looking for someone
That's
who will.
not fair. You've been asking
No,
the
I'm
question.
not. I said I should, but I'm not going to. I think that we are looking for someone ultimately, primarily, who will be responsible for the overall operations of the finance department. You guys can tell me if you disagree. And as well as the lead person in helping Peter put together the town administrator's budget.
Sure.
And in addition, of course, overseeing the treasury collection part. But we're really looking, I think the fit is very important in this community.
Sure.
It's a small community, it's a small town hall, great people, and a great culture. Might be a little biased. But it's really important that the person who comes here and joins us is willing to make a commitment not only to the job but to the culture and to working as a team.
Absolutely.
As a member of a team, working collaboratively with everyone. So the skills are really important. We're looking for increasing desire to have more responsibility as time goes on. But also, again, really, the fit, I think, is a very important thing. You guys want to add anything to that?
I've said my piece.
Okay. I think those are the questions that we have.
Great.
With one candidate, it's interesting.
It is indeed.
We had Mr. Dash.
We did. We've had a lot of one candidate, highly recommended candidates. We probably should deliberate a little.
Sure.
So as such, I will thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. It was nice to meet all of you.
And we will
Thanks, Peter.
get back to
You
you.
bet. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I live in Newburyport. Yep. Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much for
It
coming.
is. I love it.
I love Kittery too, actually. Good night.
And I will say, just to, before the board has discussion, that we did have a vetting process. We posted the position ultimately 2 times. We brought a couple candidates in. We actually brought, several candidates in. We brought 3 candidates in initially, with Alex Bagan, the Finance Committee Chair, Chris Holak, the Town Accountant, and myself. And coming out of that process, at this point, Patty is our recommended candidate.
So are we going to talk more about it tonight, or?
Well, let's decide.
I'm in favor of voting her tonight. She did interview extremely
I am
well.
also.
I
I
am.
was very impressed with personality.
Mm-hmm.
It came across well. It sounds like her experience is pretty broad.
Pretty deep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we brought up the potential need for some support as far as the treasurer-collector goes, but maybe a little less than I originally imagined, but still some.
I think definitely some. I mean, we had this conversation during the interview process. I've talked to Patty about it. I've talked to the staff, the finance office staff about it, and I think there's clearly going to be a learning curve coming in the door. She hasn't been to treasurer-collector school in Massachusetts and so forth. That would certainly be something that we'd look forward to having her being committed to. That being said, that just happened a couple weeks ago, so we'd be talking about a full cycle. There are a lot of resources in Massachusetts. There's the Mass Treasure Collectors Association, but I definitely think that there would need to be some kind of consulting support coming in the door to make sure that those daily treasure collector functions were fulfilled, and that there weren't any issues there, because as we know, there's not quite 3 FTEs in that office. Accounting is on one side, treasure collector is on the other, so there's no one else to do that work. We have somebody who's filling that role, just keeping things going right now on a very part-time basis. Maybe she could be part of that transition program. I'm not sure about her availability long-term. There are some other firms that do that kind of work. And so that's something, my suggestion would be, if the board is interested in extending a conditional offer to Patty, that I would work between now and your next meeting, September 11th, on some kind of transition plan and laying out what that would look like for the office in terms of our commitment, staffing-wise, and resources.
Okay, why don't I make this, I think this is my motion to make this motion, and we'll see if works for people. So I move the Board of Selectmen extend a conditional offer of employment to Patricia Moore as Finance Director / Treasurer Collector, subject to successful contract negotiations, we haven't talked about that, but certainly that would be, and background investigation, and subsequent approval of a transition plan for the Finance Office by the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Further discussion.
The idea essentially would be that I would be working on all 3 tracks at the same time in the next 3 weeks.
I think, well, this is sort of obvious. It's very important that we fill this position soon, and I'm encouraged that we had a candidate that we feel comfortable. I was a little worried that maybe we'd be putting this off, but so yes, I think it'd be great if we could come to our next meeting with a draft of a contract and the other things we need.
Yep.
Further discussion.
No, I think if she feels she needs some support, I think that's how I would approach it, as opposed to telling her she's going to get support. Maybe she needs to get in there and get her feet wet a little bit first and determine what type of help or support she might need.
Yeah, it would certainly be a conversation. I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be operating in a vacuum. That's a conversation
Yeah.
I would have with her. But I think even she is aware that, she's had obviously some involvement on the treasure collector side.
Yep.
But it's generally been more of in a management capacity as opposed to being on the front lines and
We should offer transitional support, and so that, it's up to her to decide how long she's going to need it for, but, she hasn't had this exact job in Massachusetts. Massachusetts rules are different than Maine, blah, blah, blah. Being the finance director, the head of the FinCom at the Linfield, you're in it, but that's not treasurer collector, so, but she's a smart woman, obviously. She's been in many jobs, and so it'd be up to her to decide, and how much transitional support she needs and how long that would last, but I think it would be shorter rather than longer.
Just want to make sure that she has all the ability to succeed in the position and
Exactly.
the office operations run smoothly.
I couldn't agree more with Jack, and I guess I would add that it's not unprecedented. The last 2 or 3 people who have had this position in one form or another have had some support, transitional support, so it's not that unusual. I think, as I said at the end, not only do I think she has the skills and the ability to learn, but I think, as Jack said, the energy, enthusiasm is a really good fit for our town hall. So.
She had a well-rounded finance background, all of, doing all these jobs, and she had a lot of jobs. I'm a little concerned, otherwise. I think we have a good candidate here.
Okay.
So we moved and seconded, up to you.
Okay, if we're ready to vote, all in favor
Aye.
of Patricia Moore? Aye. It's unanimous to offer employment to Patricia Moore, and you will let her know?
I will.
And we'll be back, this will be back on the agenda at our next meeting. So moving along, happy to not have any more agenda items for a while. We have a discussion about public shade tree removal. It's a sort of update, discussion, et cetera. And it speaks to what we started with, and John has this agenda item.
He's anti-birch, I can tell right away.
If I could ask you to please come on up to the
Or beach or whatever it is, okay.
podium, lectern. Our illustrious tree warden,
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for that.
Win Mulberry.
And John, do you want me to just give a kind of high-level overview of where
why
we
don't
are
you
at this
take-
point?
Yeah, quick snap at it. Yep.
Just because I think it probably would be helpful.
I've
So,
visited all the sites and so forth, so.
yeah, I mean, the idea is just to kind of talk about where we are, big picture. Generally speaking, the tree warden expense line has been at $25,000 and change for some amount of time. We know that amount really isn't sufficient to cover all of the removals, let alone plantings, that need to get done on an annual basis, particularly as our public shade trees age over time.
Well, we've been waiting for some grant to land on us to tell us, oh, we can buy 1,000 trees and plant them.
Well, we're at least, I think, going to be able to make some more substantial headway in terms of addressing a lot of the hazard trees. So at the end of the last fiscal year, coming out of a conversation I believe that we had at the board level in maybe May, there was a suggestion to request a reserve fund transfer, and that was approved in the amount of $25,000 by the Finance Committee, I think in June, to supplement that expense line. And that was following up on the heels of the completion of the report that we did get some grant funding for, and we had to pitch in some of the town's funds as well to do a comprehensive inventory of the trees on our major thoroughfares in town. The recommendations coming out of that plan, unfortunately, was that almost half of our trees were in such a condition that they were recommended for removal. So coming out of that, we had the report in hand. We obviously have plenty of residents who have made complaints and suggestions about various trees over the years. So Wynn and Beltac, the DPW director, assembled a list of a little over 50 trees that they're recommending for removal. And there's 3 different statutory processes because it's never simple, for taking down these trees. So there are trees on public ways that present a hazard, and those can be removed by the town without any public hearing process. There are trees that are hazard trees on scenic roads, of which we have several, that have to go through a public hearing process. That's a joint hearing with the planning board and the tree warden.
What's a scenic road versus a non-scenic road?
It's a designation. It's a statutory designation. The town accepted the statute back in the 70s and then designated a number of roads in town as scenic. There was, I think, one wave that first year, and then a couple more were added over time. And so the trees that are on those scenic roads, at this point, that public hearing is scheduled for September 6th here in Town Hall at 7:30, I believe. And then the third category are trees that are located on public property but not near a public way. And those similarly require a public hearing, but it's not with the planning board, it's just with the tree warden. So the announcement, the first announcement for tonight's meeting were the trees that fit into that category. So that is, in this instance, the one birch tree on Town Hall lawn and the two trees in Pingree Park that are adjacent to the Hamilton Wenham Garden Club community garden that they're putting together.
Well, this is not on any one of the three categories you just mentioned. There's no road here.
It's on public property and it's not near a public way.
You said public property. I didn't hear you say public property.
Yeah, it's on municipal property, but not near a public way. So it's
Which one of the three categories is that? The third one?
The third one. Yep. So that's a hearing that the tree warden holds, and public are invited. We're required to advertise in the paper, put it on the bulletin board, posts a notice on the tree. That's all those orange notices on various trees around town that you've seen.
So what are the characteristics of this tree that needs to be cut down? I'm just curious. I was joking before, but it's not obvious to me the tree needs to be cut down. I'm just curious as to how you determine that needs to be cut down.
My initial is a visual inspection.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the tree from a certain distance, the whole canopy of the tree. More than 50% of the tree doesn't have leaves on. Indicates to me it's dead, and it's dying or in a state of decline. I mean, we've been watching, or I've been watching this tree for a number of years, even when Pierre was in office, and it hasn't been getting any better.
Okay. Okay.
So, yep.
Thank you.
So just to give a little bit more information, besides the public hearing notice, just for residents to know, if they do have any concerns or questions, come to the hearing. But if they want to make an objection, they have to do it in writing, either before or at the hearing. And if that is the case, then Wynn actually doesn't arbitrate that issue. It goes to the Board of Selectmen. So it would be on a future Selectmen's agenda. So I thought it would be...
That'd be a lot more interesting than some of the stuff we've been talking about. But, so how would I know if I had a tree on my street or near my house that it was subject to one of these three conditions and the town or you wanted to tear it down? How would I know whether to come to a public hearing, whether that tree was one of the trees that was designated to be removed? How would I know that?
What I do, I mean, I think legally I'm obligated to post a notice on the tree 7 days in advance of the public hearing. I've tried to do that 2 weeks ahead of time. I've done it with, Sheila Bouvier's help up in the DPW. We've done it with orange placards facing the street to make it that much more visible.
Okay.
So,
it'd be nice if it was online too.
It is. So the information is posted. It's actually front and center on the homepage in terms of information about when the public hearings are.
No, the tree.
We don't have the exact tree locations on like a GIS map, but we do have a listing of all of the trees, an inventory of each of the trees and the closest property where
well, even if just in the street, okay, Morgan Street, there's 3 trees in town, Kimball Ave, Topsteel Road. So
we actually have the address.
So is what we have in our packet, which lists a street and a number in some cases, what's online?
Correct.
Okay.
So it would say, looking at Larch Row after number something or other.
You're right, two maple trees, the type, the caliper, general caliper size, and then whatever decals Wen is provided.
I think legally also, from what I understand, not being a lawyer, location, type of tree, and size of tree, and with the report that was done by Bartlett, they did, they measured the trees with small, medium, large to designate height to it. There's a bunch of different ways you can measure the size of a tree from an arborist perspective, but I tried to follow their, their sort of nomenclature with it, for lack of a better term. So, and then the, sorry about that. But the notes I made at the end were more for me, but they made it out there, and that's fine too. It's just, yep.
Well, Peter knows, I don't know if the other two selectmen know, but you probably do, that there was a tree issue in Settlers Way that was quite animated, and that I know I got a call at 7:15 in the morning, and that rushed down there with the police and the fire. Somebody wanted to cut down a tree, and I wasn't sure. I saw the result of that, and the tree's going to be cut down, but there was a lot of neighbors on that Settlers Way who did not want a particular tree, one tree cut down, and it will be cut down, and that I guess 2 new trees are going to be planted. So I was not aware of the level of interest, I should say, in some of the people in a particular tree. So I was certainly made aware of that for one particular tree. And I saw the tree, oh, okay, I don't know. But so I think that we don't want to have people coming into the selectmen's room after we've cut down trees without having a proper notice that the tree is going to be scheduled to cut down. So we want to be, I think, up front as much as possible based on that one tree I had on Settlers Way. And by the way, I'm sorry about that tree, Settlers Way, folks, but except the person who wanted to cut it down.
And I think that's why we wanted to make sure that this was a standalone agenda item on the selectmen's packet this week, that we included as much information as we could, both in the packet and on the website, besides just checking the boxes that are required by statute in terms of putting it in the paper and putting the notices on trees. We want to try to get that information out there because we're talking about more than 50 trees being removed, which is a lot more than we've done historically. I think it's obviously important. It's a public safety issue in a lot of cases, and we're being systematic about it, and there's going to be more to come, but I think the more we get the information out there, the better.
Was a number of 50 simply limitation on the budget?
Pretty much.
I mean, could if we hit the money, would have been 200 instead of 50?
I think the initial report, again, from Bartlett, which is what we're all working on, and then, I'm going around and doing visual inspections all the time and doing a sort of assessment in my head about, size of the tree and its location, and obviously a dead tree needs to come down sooner than a tree that's half alive. But, they said 300 trees just on Larch, Walnut, Dodges Row, Grapevine, and a couple other streets in town, and those are just sort of the major scenic roads.
Elude the town.
It was not 300 for removal, it was 300 total. So it was about 140 were recommended for removal, and that was just on Walnut, Larch, Grapevine, Dodges, Arbor, Monument, Cherry, Maple, and Topsfield. Most of our main roads. But there are certainly trees on a lot of other side streets. So, we're certainly making an impact. But there's going to be more to come.
This has more than caught my attention. I've been dealing with it for years. And the concern I have is that removal is inevitable. Planting takes effort. I've seen little to no effort to plant. Yet we remove.
Great.
Because sometimes they just come and find us all by themselves with a storm. Or they just become very sick and need to be. What is the plan for replanting?
I think that was one of the discussion points really we all had this year before the budget, was to request that RFD and earmark $10,000 for replanting, at a minimum of 20 trees as the money allows. We're trying to work with the DPW. We've been working with the water ban, this summer and sort of a very tough summer, so we didn't want to get to that point of starting to put in trees now that would require additional time that the DPW doesn't have. And I mean, I'm trying to, when I go out and mark a tree with that orange placard, I'm usually getting somebody coming out of the house or a business, and they want to talk, or it's already, they've already called up my department and said, hey, can you come out and look at this, and they're agreeable. I look at it and, okay, we're both agreeable, but then it goes into this third point of discussion about,
What category?
yeah, what about replanting, if it's appropriate?
Yeah.
There are, I think we found one resident or two residents right on Cherry Street, where she was very agreeable to, she wanted some trees put back, but she was also agreeable to going out and watering them herself, which worked out great. I drive by those trees 2 or 3 times a day, if not more. They're doing great, so trying to find those residents who have an open spot in their yard who,
If there's some initiative that can be had or made by you, which is individual, or by us as a community in town and management, I think you ought to get that in place.
right, I think I've already lined up 5 other residents to have trees installed after, some of these come down, and there are going to be more opportunities as we go forward.
My predecessor, Albie Dodge,
Oh, yeah.
put a magnolia at the base of my driveway.
Must have been the same day he came to my driveway with that. I had one of those too.
That was my initial meeting with this man.
Yep.
Who's many trees. And I've got to tell you, I took care of it like it were my own, even though it was at or on the public way. And it is, every spring, it is like a white waterfall. I mean, it's a dogwood. Did they say magnolia?
Yeah, it's a dogwood.
Dogwood.
Japanese
It's like
dogwood.
a white waterfall of blossoms.
Must have
every
had
spring.
surplus of those
Just,
then.
just incredible. More of that type of thing needs to happen.
Right.
So if there's a way you can initiate, we won't try to solve it tonight, engagement of the residents
Yep.
to take personal pride in this. I think it's a great thing.
Yep.
That's a conversation we've obviously had with Bill. The DPW has committed. The understanding, certainly by the Finance Committee in approving the $25,000 RFT, was that 10,000 of that would go to tree plantings in this fiscal year. DPW is committed to planting 10 trees this fall and 10 trees this spring. It's just a matter of working with Wynn and the residents, deciding on specific locations and types of trees so that we can start getting that done. I think it's really important because we're taking a lot of trees down.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we're putting trees back in the right location, the right species, and that's where Wynn's a great resource.
2 connections I'd make for you is one is the garden club. The more communication you can have with them, go to their meetings, give them a flyer of some sort, tell them what you need to do. The other is WVIS, and that was one of their primary missions when they first were founded, was beautifying the town of Wenham.
Yep.
And was planting of trees. To the point of the hearing, because of the trees that have been marked, I've been to both sites now. I agree that the Henry Park 2 trees not only are in very bad condition, but I can't imagine they would be missed. But I am of 2 minds about this beautiful birch out here. And I'm going to suggest that we think about pruning it as opposed to removing it completely. And see what that value might be. I understand it's probably 30 to 50% top dead or close, but if we could get a few more years out of it while you initiate a planting for replacements for it.
Okay.
Maybe some aspirin at the bottom, John, sprinkle it around. Some Cheerios or something.
Well, there are ways of handling trees like this. And if you go to Myopia Hunt Club and you look at the birch they
I'm not
have
allowed to
there,
go there.
I went there because I was told to go there if I wanted to see how to handle a tree like this. And Mr. Mulry has agreed that if you bed the thing completely, big wide circle around it with mulching, that's how these trees survive in the wild and get so beautiful. we sit out here and we
Mulched in
cut.
the wild?
They're mulched by nature.
Oh.
By the way they are in nature.
Oh.
Myopia has done that, and that tree is just spectacular, and it was in very serious condition.
Oh, there you go, John, okay.
So,
Do you think that's something that, given the condition of the tree right now, would potentially turn it around, or is it?
There seems to be a lot of interest in saving the tree. I mean, initially, and I got to look at, I'm looking at the numbers and saying, okay, I've got estimates that it's going to be, say, $1,600 to remove it. It's going to be $700 to $800 roughly to safety prune it, for lack of a better term, remove all the dead wood. We hold on to that until next spring, and then we've got to figure out, you know, creating a mulch bed around it, removing the grass to the limit of the drip line, which is going to be, say, 20 feet out from the trunk all around.
and we don't have to cut the grass anymore.
Well, that's true, but I don't think you're going to see any savings from that angle. And then it's going to be aerating the root zone, coming back in with, say, a sandy mixed soil, and then getting it on a fertilization schedule along with a pesticide program.
But John has already volunteered to help you with that.
I'm here.
Right.
I have nothing else to do.
He's got a shovel.
Okay, you got it, you're hired.
I'm deep into retirement. No,
Yeah.
I'm not.
So, I mean, let's see what type of response we're getting on Thursday. If we have some written objection, I think it's going to be passed back up to you guys. If not,
To the town
That'll be
folks
an
who are
easy
watching this show, there is a meeting. There is a meeting Thursday evening.
which
right
camera?
Right here.
Okay, right here in this
Why don't we have it
room.
about 3 o'clock outside, John, right by the bridge?
We could do that. We could have a picnic out there. The storm will have passed by then.
We'll serve cocktails up there.
So if someone has an objection, please come to the hearing, or please put something in writing before the hearing, if you'd like to see anything further done with that. But if you
Because
can-
this is going to be an emotional tree for not just me.
historically speaking, it has been, as we know.
Where do you send the letter? To you, Peter?
It's sent to the tree warden.
And that, your email address?
I think it's got to be a written objection, so you've got to actually show up to the meeting and provide a, would an email be a? Oh, okay.
DPW, or you can send it to DPW, Sheila Bouvier.
If we could, I'd like to circle back a little bit to planting.
Sure.
I'd like to put a little bit finer point on that. We've had to spend a lot of time and put in a lot of effort to have a plan around cutting trees.
Yep.
And I think that's a great thing, and I think to a great extent, having the plan has facilitated actually acting on it. I think it's equally as important to have a plan for planting. I understand that some of it would be done in collaboration with community members, but there is money allocated by the town, and I think whether the trees are planted by community members or cared for by community members or not, I would like to see a plan for all of the trees that we think we would like to plant, what kinds of trees, where they would be, because the impact of losing that many trees is going to be startling. And I think without a very specific plan, I shouldn't say a specific plan of planting, timing, and type of tree, it isn't going to happen. The plantings are going to lag, and I think in addition to that, people we may get fewer letters of concern about the cutting down of trees if people understand that this is a process, that as a natural process, trees die, but we have a commitment to replacing as many trees as we can. And to that end, we really have not done a lot of planting.
Didn't we have a discussion, I couldn't more be supportive of that. Didn't we have a discussion in the last budget session on this?
We did.
And what happened to that?
Ultimately, where we ended up was that we were still in the process of completing the inventory. We said, let's get to the other side of the inventory.
Okay.
Then we'll know where the removals need to happen, where they need to be prioritized, and understand then what we need to do going forward in terms of the planting plan. So that was where the RFT, that's where we are, and that's why when we had the discussion with the finance committee about the RFT, it was focused on, basically 15 for removals, 15,000 for removals, and 10,000 for plantings. And so.
Okay, I'm strongly in favor of planting the trees. I have been for several years, and I think that somebody just mentioned a minute ago, maybe it was John, maybe it was Catherine, that perhaps in some instances we could encourage the homeowner who's a tree plant to do what you just said a minute ago, care for it and water it. I bet you a lot of people would be glad to do that if they had a tree near their house on the road or near the road to beautify, the area. And I know I would be willing to do that. Get up early and do it,
in the middle of the night. And we obviously rely.
Have the cocktail out.
We rely quite a bit on your expertise on this, and this is.
Oh no, I enjoy the process, and I think, like I've said, I've already lined up 6 trees to be installed. It's just an issue of getting some things taken down, and that doesn't even take into account anything on Porter Street, which we're proposing taking 2 trees down, and I think we could get another 6 trees, between Arbor and Perkins.
So I guess I'm encouraging you to have those plans in place at the time or before we cut down the trees.
I agree with you. It just ends up being a point of when we have a list of proposed tree removals, if I have a plan in place that takes into account a tree that someone's going to have an objection to, it's almost I've expended energy that I don't have time for and budget for. I'm not saying it's a one-man Andy-Bandy show, but I can provide a list of trees that I think are going to be appropriate, and I will provide a list of trees that I'm proposing to put in at certain points for your review, most likely after they're put in, but just so you're kept up to date, and it's going to be more on residents' requests and concerns.
Point. So maybe the appropriate time is after a hearing, when we know if there are any objections, and we know pretty certainly what trees will be coming down.
Right, and again, the DPW is committed to putting in 2 in a week, potentially. It could be 2 every 2 weeks, so it's going to be a process.
Right.
Which I think you guys, keep Peter well informed, and Bill will be also, and it'll just flow through the loop.
Okay.
So, yep.
And I think
good discussion.
Yeah.
To keep the public informed as
And
well.
don't hesitate to come back to this meeting at any time and give us an update.
I'll probably see you Thursday.
Call me.
You got it.
Make sure we put it on the agenda so we get it spoken of.
Yep.
Good. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Yep,
Thanks
you're
for all you're
welcome.
doing. I know it's a lot to do for one person.
Well, you're all about water. I do trees. And Catherine was right there behind me.
I just get announced, you can't water your damn lawn.
Okay. We got that. So moving along, item F on our agenda is a one-day liquor license, which is John's.
Yes, ma'am.
We didn't have the water ban on this agenda tonight.
No, we didn't. After 3 or 4 times, we figure people maybe have got it.
Trudy Reed, who is the chair of the 375th Town of Wenham Anniversary Committee, has requested a liquor license, one-day liquor license, so we can all have drinks, I should put it that way, to celebrate the town's birthday. And she has gone through the process of filling out the required paperwork, checking with the folks that'll be serving and so forth. So I have a motion to see that this can happen if this board will so agree.
It's in the front of F.
Move the motions to the front of the tab, so it's right there.
Thank you. All right. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve a one-day all-alcohol beverage liquor license for Trudy Reed, Chair of the 375th Anniversary Committee, for the Community Day being held at Pingree Park, which is at 211 Main Street, from 11:30 p.m.
A.M.?
I was going to say, that doesn't seem right.
11:30 a.m.
11:30 a.m.
It's a typo.
To 3 p.m. On Saturday, September 8th, 2018. And we would like to waive the $50 fee as requested.
Second.
Any Any further discussion?
Nope.
So we're all in favor of having a drink to celebrate?
I'm in favor of waiving the fee, yeah.
Aye.
Aye. That'd be unanimous.
That's good, okay.
Oh,
The motion is correct. Okay.
I was going to say split the difference.
The
but-
4 o'clock.
yeah, 3:30.
Okay. So we look forward to that event and those adult beverages. Under G, new business, this is Jack's agenda item and has to do with a location agreement.
I'll read the motion and describe it as best as I can from the information that was presented to me. We have a location agreement for a commercial shoot at Cheeseman Field. Vote, I move the Board of Selectmen approve the proposed location agreement between the Town of Wenham and Golden Stick for production of a commercial shoot at Cheeseman Field, Pingree Park, 211 Main Street, Thursday, September 13th, 2018. And let's see, we have
I'll second that, just so we can.
Good, second that.
Okay.
Okay.
Are they looking for a liquor license too?
No, we have a location agreement, and it's several pages long, all signed by the Mr. Levesque, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Email regarding the commercial shoots, that's the name of the company, and so forth. And so that there are also tryouts for people, anybody who wants to actually be in the, no, I'm only kidding. There's
I
no
actually would like
tryouts.
to try that moonshot bat.
Yeah. So
Maybe they'll invite me. Off camera.
you could be known. And so it's moved and seconded. Further discussion?
So am I understanding correctly what they're trying to do? It seems pretty straightforward. They just want to use Cheeseman Field to shoot a commercial spot for their product.
Very, specific wiffle ball bat. That is
It's a moonshoot bat. Yeah.
Whatever that is.
I did
Should
a
we
little
ask?
Googling on this, and apparently there are some close ties to the moonshoot bat and its developers and this area relative to, what is it called? The Wiffle Ball Little League or
I've been to
something.
I've been to a championship wiffle ball.
Yeah, yeah. So there are
That's a miniature Fenway Park, actually, and that they only have like 3 players in the team. Pitcher, catcher, and first baseman or something, I don't know. A outfielder, I think.
I
Maybe
think
it's
it's
4.
fascinating. I might actually be able to hit a wiffle ball
Well, maybe.
with a moonshot bat.
And it's first and second, it lets,
Yeah, so
we used up our time with the trees.
I think it seems like a pretty reasonable request.
And this is a standard location agreement that we developed, if you'll remember, when Jeff Whittick was filmed at the Iron Rail property. We were town council, so we just adapted it to fit the particulars of this shoot that's going to happen. And we do have a certificate of liability insurance saying the town is additional insurance as part of that agreement.
No further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
I'd love to know when it actually happens.
September 13th.
Is it good?
I just read it a minute ago.
Is it, are they still on that
Yep, they're still
schedule?
September 13th, Thursday.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, so next on the agenda, under new business, Jack, also Board of Health Medicare application. This should be some familiar language to you, Jack.
Move to authorize somebody named Catherine Harrison, Board of Selectmen Chair, to execute a proposed agreement with Medicare. You don't do it with Medicare, but anyway. So the Board of Health will be eligible to receive reimbursement for the purchase and administration of the flu vaccine, which is an annual,
that's right.
which is an annual thing, of course.
That's
and
right. I
it's a
remember doing
freebie.
this before.
Just bring your Medicare card or anything else you got. Anyway, do I hear a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Pretty soon we'll know the date of that, too, because that's important. But this is August, so it won't be till October-ish or something like that, right?
Coming soon, and the announcement's in September.
September.
Yeah, we'll have a clinic at the Bucher. Jackie would love to speak about the flu clinic.
No, I just wanted to let you know it's actually already posted on the Board of Health website, but we'll be doing ads in the paper and on the homepage as well. The first clinic will be in Hamilton October 3rd. The Wenham clinic will be at the Bucher School on October 17th, and the last clinic will be in Hamilton on November 30th. But we'll do a lot of advertising, see the newsletter, website.
Yep, everyone should get a flu shot. Some years it's very effective, some years it's not that effective, whatever.
Okay, I have, under item, cross it off, I, no other matters under new business. We do have one item of old business, and it is actually my item. It's not, it is old business, and it is the final review and approval of the letter of review for the open space and recreation plan. We've talked about this before. This plan is going to the state for its review and approval. There is a requirement for a selectman review letter, I believe. Those of us who have been interested in having input on this, as well as on the board, as well as some community members, have taken the time to give input, and Peter has written a letter of review, which is in our packet. So I will make the motion and then see if we have any further discussion. So I move to approve the letter of review of the open space and recreation plan and authorize Catherine A. Harrison to execute the letter on behalf of the select board.
Second.
Further discussion?
I'm glad it was reviewed and added to. Yes.
No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you to Peter for drafting that letter and for incorporating the community's comments as well as ours.
And those comments will be taken into account by the open space. I know they're meeting next week, but those changes will be incorporated into the draft plan before it's submitted to the state, which will be in the next few weeks.
Remember, they said they had a goal to submit it in August, so sounds like we're going to squeak by that.
On schedule.
Okay, so the last thing that we have on the agenda are a couple of sets of minutes. Check.
Yep. I have not reviewed these yet. I was on vacation, that's my excuse, I'm sticking to it.
Oh, jeez.
But Catherine has sent them to me maybe 3 weeks ago, so I'm a little tardy in that.
They surpassed the open meeting law.
What's that?
They surpassed the open meeting law tonight. That's why I did that.
Gotcha.
No
So
problem.
To be sure to get these.
I've got 2 other sets of minutes, too.
Okay, so we'll pass over minutes for tonight. Okay, it being 8:54.
Yep.
I will, what will I do? I will take
We'll
a...
move to adjourn.
No, I won't move. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Entertain. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Aye.
8:55 PM. Thank you very much.